G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. I've got another one for you. I hope you've been enjoying the content lately. I've been feeling pretty motivated, so I've just been pumping it out as quickly as possible. So I've got another one for you. This is a manufacturer's race from the end of the previous season. So not the exhibition series that just finished. It is Laguna Seca. Or actually, it's called WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Most people just call it Laguna Seca, but sponsorship name, WeatherTech Raceway, previously Mazda Raceway as well. But, we all know it. The very famous Laguna Seca circuit. So, manufacturers. So essentially, for those who don't know, manufacturers series, you choose one of the given manufacturers in the game that has both a Group 3 and Group 4 car. You sign up for it and you just complete the races set out by Polyphony in the chosen cars. It's either a Group 3 or a Group 4 race. I've picked Ford, or I did pick Ford for the exhibition series, but we're going to go on the qualifying lap now. This is Laguna Seca. Turn 1 is this little left here, and then coming into Turn 2, braking just on the number 3 board into Turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. We've got the slipstream of Rascal Rabbit as well, so that's going to be good. And then in turn, he has the slipstream of DSO 308 in the lead, or technically not the lead, the first most position on the track. So that's going to be good for us. The double slipstream, it doesn't offer that much of an advantage to just one slipstream, but a little bit. And in these races, all you can get. Coming through turn 5 though, we're a little bit wide of the apex, just understeer off the track, try to get out of it to keep going, and unfortunately spin it onto the inside of the circuit. We've now got damage, tyres are scrubbed across the road. I've got people on qualifying laps coming behind me, so I have to be really careful with my rejoin there. Bit of a gap there, so I'm just going to try and accelerate to get through 6, but unfortunately I get that blue flag. I don't want to block these cars, so I take my car off the circuit and then slowly get back on as the cars begin to go over to the left hand side. And finally we've got a bit of a gap there to try and get rid of this lap. So at this point here I thought, well, okay, not ideal, but that's fine. We'll go into the pits, get a new set of tyres. But as it turns out, the pit sequence here at Laguna Seca is incredibly long. I've left this at, real-time speed. Look how long it takes for the car to come into the pit box. I'm still waiting. People are setting qualifying times. I'm still waiting. Countdown is ticking. I'm finally in the pit box there with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. And unfortunately, my lap time around Laguna Seca in Group 4 is about 1:26 or so. 1:26, 1:27. So I do not have enough time to get around the circuit and begin another lap. So we'll fast forward quite quickly and I can demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. Have a look at the countdown on the bottom right. So we've got 3 corners left to go, only 5 or so seconds, and there we go, the timer has run out, which means when I come across the line, that's the end of the qualifying session. So I did not have time to set a proper lap because I absolutely binned it on my actual flying lap, because it's only a 5-minute session here. It's really not long. You can probably get 2 laps, your out lap, and then 2 flying laps. You do not have time to come in for a pit stop. So we're at the back. Now, strategy for this race, you have to use all 3 tyres, so starting at the back, we're going to go into the hards. But for now, we'll just enjoy the manufacturer's intro. So there we go there. So coming back to the race, now we're going to see the grid lineup shortly. It will come to my grid position. 20th out of 20. Not ideal. So there's a few things with this Ford. Actually, we'll talk about the strategy first. So basically, when you're at the back, you don't want to start to get up to the front and battle and lose your time. So you don't start on the softs, because you'll then drive into traffic and you'll lose that advantage you get from the fastest soft tyres, because you're going to have traffic you're trying to get past. So what we do when you start towards the back, you put on the hardest compound, so hard. On the very back, you use the hard tyre. So we're going to be quite slow on this lap, and we've got to be really careful. I mean, you see coming out of that corner there, massive oversteer moment. So I've done most of my practice on the soft tyre. This is the first race I've done, so I've pretty much done no practice on the hard tyre. And on top of that, because it's tyre wear, we feel the effects of, you know, hot versus cold tyres. So cold tyres as well reduces grip as well. So we're going to follow along with this lap here and see how we go, because, you know, essentially what you want to do, start on the hard tyre, get your slow lap out of the way, because you've got to use it, well, you really want to use it for only one lap. I'd imagine this Jaguar is probably on a hard compound as well. He's dropped off the back of the guy in 18th as well. You want to get onto your hard tyre, do your slow lap, come in to the pits, and then you're going to fall back, way back from the leading sort of pack, the rest of the peloton, I suppose. And you go onto your softer compound so you can get clear air for your soft, fast tyre run. Of course, you're going to have the little bit of traffic of the other people that come in that are on their hard tyre as well, but it's not going to be nearly as much traffic as we're going to get if we were on the soft tyre trying to overtake all these people losing time. So that's the best bet we got on the hard tyre there, coming down the corkscrew. Massive wiggle on moment coming down the steepest part of that portion in between turns 8 and 9. But we'll round out to the pits now. Penalty up for 17th place, so he might become an issue, but he actually stays out, so we're not going to worry. Got a few cars. Have a look up on the leaderboard there. We're going to just have a look at this pit sequence as well, again, in real time, because this proves to be a very interesting sort of, you know, phenomenon in this race, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. It was more so prominent in my second race that I did, because, you know, I obviously want to start where I should have started with the better qualifying time than not setting one at all. So you saw how long it took for my car to come into the pits as well. We're putting on the didn't quite see what tyre we put on, the mediums. Okay, so that's alright. So what we're going to do, we're going to get the nice clean medium run. So the difference between, you know, soft and medium is smaller than the difference between soft and hard, obviously, because the mediums are softer than hards. So we're going to get a nice clear run here. We do have one car. We have a few cars actually. Have a look on the mini-map on the top right. Have about 3 cars in the immediate sort of vicinity of us, or 1 car in the immediate vicinity, and then 2 cars ahead of him that are a little bit further up along the track. And then you've got the main pack running from currently turn 11 back to halfway up Rahal Straight. That's the rest of the pack. So we're not going to worry about traffic too much. We're just going to try and set some nice clean laps on the medium tyre, in hopes to kind of, you know, make up that deficit by we encountered by starting further back on the grid. So we're just going to keep an eye on the gap between myself and the guy in 19th. We may be grasping, it may sound like we're grasping at straws here, but this is the strategy that works. You know, it gives you the best bet. So we're going to keep an eye on the gap as well, because we don't actually know what tyres the Honda is on. So we're going to have to, you know, monitor that gap, and you can begin to sort of estimate what kind of tyres they're on because of how quickly the gap comes down. Someone goes into the pits there, the end of lap 2, another hard tyre runner, so that's another option as well. You can do 2 laps on the hard, and then you avoid that extra lap, you know, on the softs or mediums. Usually the softs that are the slowest lap because they're so worn. So that's okay. He's now behind on the soft tyre. You can see on the leaderboard the red S. So we're going to have to be careful of that, although he's going to have quite a large gap because he's only just coming out of the pits now. We're going to skip ahead to the end of lap 3. Another person comes into the pits. Another hard tyre runner by the looks of it. So 3 laps on the hard. You're beginning to sort of spend a bit too much time on the slowest tyre. You're going to lose that sort of extra advantage that the extra lap on the softs might get you, because you spend, you know, the maximum amount of time on softs that you possibly can up until the point where they become too worn to be viable. But we'll come back to the race. You see how quickly I've drawn this gap down on Mr. Snowy, so not that quickly, but you see he actually rides the curb through turn 3 and ends up in the gravel on the outside of that little straight bit there, and we managed to make that move up the inside of turn 4. So we're up into 18th position, so you can begin to see just how these clean laps on the medium tyres really make an advantage. A couple more people go into the pits at the end of the next few laps. We find ourselves up into 15th position on lap 5 in the slipstream of the actually not quite, about 2 seconds behind, so about half a second back from the sort of outer reaches of the slipstream of the Ferrari in 14th. So we're going to spend this lap trying to catch up, which we do by the end of it. You see, we skip ahead to the final turn of lap 6, so it took a little while. It's about 2 laps, or 1 lap, sorry, and we're finally in the slipstream of the Ferrari. So we're going to have to make a decision here as to what we're going to do. We can either catch up. We're going to catch up to the Ferrari a little bit anyway. He actually runs quite wide off the first apex of turn 2, so we managed to get a couple of tenths in there. But you've got 2 options when you get close to another car ahead. You can either go for the overtake if you think that you're faster than them, or you can hang behind if you need to fuel save. Now this race, it's not so much focused on fuel as it is on tyres. Tyres are the most important thing in this race, but you can fuel save behind because you can short shift and put into leaner fuel settings when you're behind a car, because the slipstream of that car negates any speed loss you get from short shifting or going into leaner fuel settings. But you see how close we are behind this Ferrari here, so we can potentially set up a move into the corkscrew, which is a good overtaking opportunity to get a nice run out of turn 6. See, we carried that extra little bit of speed. We're on the outside for a 7, but the inside for 8, which is the main dip in the corkscrew. We managed to get onto the brakes nicely. We run a little bit deep. You see how slowly we have to go. We have to take that awkward, narrow, sort of deep, slow line through the corkscrew, but we managed to get through there nicely as we've got that turn 10 rainy curve straight after, which is, you know, very fast flowing left-hander, another fast flowing right-hander after a little bit wide onto the gravel. A couple more people come into the pits, and then we come up to the final corner now. I'm going to try and defend that position from the Ferrari as well, but we did catch up to him relatively quickly, so it's, you know, we do have the potential. He's maybe on the hard tyre at the moment, or he could be on very worn softs, which is, you know, that's a valid prediction given that we're on lap 8, and you can spend around 8, 9, 10 laps on the soft tyres depending on your car. End of lap 8, a couple more people come into the pits. There's a few soft runners, a few mediums, a couple of hard tyre runners finishing up. We find ourselves up in 5th place at this point, but remember, we've only done the 1 stop as well. Some of these guys will have done the 2 stops by now and either be finishing the race on the medium or soft tyres now. So actually it equalises to 6, obviously, so we're coming out of the pits at that point there. Actually 8th. Do we lose any more positions? No, we pass the end of the pit lane. 8th. It equalises to 8th. End of lap 9, we come in for our pit stop. We're going to go onto the soft tyres from here to the end of the race, so 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, about 6 laps on the softs. You can probably do a bit more, to be honest. I think I spent a little bit too long on those medium tyres. I was obviously, you know, trying to, I don't know what I was trying to do, take advantage of when they're the fastest, I guess, but soft tyres are faster, and you can spend time on them longer. So we're gonna come up behind this sort of battle pack of 3. Directly ahead, we're in the slipstream of the Toyota 86, which is a very strong handling car. So it's going to be quite hard to catch, really, as Laguna Seca, there's not really many long straights. In fact, the longest straight is only about 450 metres. And I think it's the run from either turn 4 to 5, or from turn 6 to 7. They're about the same length, it looks on a map, so I can't really, it's difficult to estimate how long they actually are without physically going to the USA located racetrack and getting an actual measuring wheel and measuring the length of the straight, which, you know, I like to know my stats about racetracks, but I'm really not that interested in it. So you see throughout the course of this lap, we've actually caught up to this group of 3 a little bit, so those group were fighting a little bit. Toyota catches the gravel on the outside of turn 6. Coming into the corkscrew, the Nissan brakes really early, and unfortunately I just punt him straight into the gravel, and I'm going to have to wait up for that one. There's not... no, that, you know, it's extremely clear. Say he had dash cam footage and submitted it to court, I would be sentenced quite heavily. That was a very obvious murder there. And one of the main points here at Laguna Seca, if you drop all 4 wheels onto the gravel, you are affected for basically half a lap. Coming out of here, I've got this Lamborghini, he just lent on me a little bit on the exit there, and then the Nissan ran deep thanks to having dirt on his tyres, and I just get speared off into the barrier as well. So unfortunately I've had a couple of incidents here on my soft tyre run, which isn't ideal. So instead of spending these laps trying to get your faster laps in on your soft tyres, I've spent them trying to, you know, not get spun off And you end up losing more from spinning off as well, because a spin really scrubs your tyres, so then the rest of the laps are not as fast as they could be because the tyres are more worn. Catch up to this Ferrari again, so he never overtook us. It was just by strategy. He manages to go very deep into the corkscrew, and you see how close we are behind, looking up the inside of turn 11, and it's not quite on, so we're going to have to try and overtake this guy again. But the main thing as well, the Ferrari does have very, very poor tyre management, and that's just an inherent characteristic of the car. So the tyres do wear very quickly. It's a mid-engine car as well, so those rear tyres really get scrubbed across the road, and it's not great in a straight line either, as evident right there. We caught up very quickly, we were in the slipstream. We go slightly deep. We just have to watch coming up the inside. There's that Ferrari nose poking into the screen again, but he's on the wrong side for turn 3, so we're going to be able to get this move done as long as we don't make any glaring errors. We park it on the apex. Ferrari rides that sausage curb, which inhibits his run even further, and we managed to get that position up into 14th. And then we're on the final lap now. The lead is finished. That's how far behind we are. We've had a really poor race here. We've got a Lamborghini of Rascal Rabbit coming into the corkscrew. He brakes very early, actually. Is wide off the second apex, so that door's open. I try to stick my nose up the inside, and unfortunately he's just moving over to the right-hand side to take the left-hander in a more racing line fashion, and I end up getting shepherded off the track. I looked at that incident, actually, and you see there we finished 15th. Do remember we started 20th. Have a quick look up the leader. He has a 20-second penalty, and he still managed to win by 2 seconds. We'll explain that a bit later, but I'll just go back to the incident with the Lamborghini there. I did look at it a couple of times, and I do think maybe I was in the wrong at that point because I wasn't quite up far enough. There wasn't, basically, if my nose is up to the B pillar, I think you're entitled to have space left for you, but I wasn't quite there. I probably had my front wheel in line with his rear wheel, so maybe I wasn't in the right position at that point, so I ended up losing a position there. But very poor run we had, so we're going to have to go again, and this is the Lamborghini straight ahead of me, actually, so hopefully we don't carry over any, we don't set a precedent for this qualifying session. He actually pulls out of the way straight away, wanting to drop back a little bit. But this is finally a qualifying lap, an actual qualifying lap. So let's follow the car up ahead. We've probably just got little dregs of slipstream at this point, so that's okay. Coming into turn 2, turn 1's flat out, obviously. Turn 2 braking dead on the number 3 board. Coming into turn 2, stop it on the first apex, rotate before the second apex, get onto the power nice and early. Tyres are nice and warm and sticky at this point, so we managed to get good grip. Coming into 3, braking halfway between the little drain on the outside of the curb and the final brake board. Into 3, into 4, a little lift on the end of the curb and a dab of the brakes to get that front nose pointed in. Nice run through there. Up through to turn 5 now, braking on just before the number 2 board, getting that very furthermost inside point there. There's a nice camber on that corner. Coming into turn 6, very fast left hand, a little dab of the brakes, ride that dip out to the exit. The car just ahead of me rides it a little bit too hard and ends up on the sand on the outside. Coming into the corkscrew, braking just on the number 3 board on the right hand side. We want to straight line this as much as we can. The Lamborghini kindly pulls off to the gravel on the outside. Coming through Rainy Curve now. You just want to follow the road, really. There's not really a reference for that. I was just going off feeling for that corner. Coming into turn 11, braking on the number 2 board. Once again, ride that camber on the inside, and then the final turn, turn 12, braking on the number 3 board into second gear, trail brake onto the apex, and then power out using all this curb on the outside. And we did get slipstream for a good portion of that lap, so we're going to come across the line, a 127.6. So that's pole by about a little bit, nearly 2/10, sorry. And then coming towards the end of the qualifying session, I do get pipped for pole by Pick McCosey by a few tenths, nearly 3/10. So we're in second position. Much better result. I'm very happy with that. It gives you the best chance of, it gives you the second best chance of winning. So hopefully this leads to a better race. Now, this is where it gets controversial, shall I say. You may have seen at the end of the previous race, the leader had a 20-second penalty. We're going to talk about that in significant detail here, because it is quite important for the course of this race to understand how he was able to still win and, in addition, get that 20-second penalty. So this race has tyre requirements, which means if you do not use the tyre that the game says you have to use, you will receive a 20-second penalty. The penalty is not specific to you didn't use one tyre, there's a 20-second penalty. It's you didn't meet the tyre requirements, so here's a 20-second penalty. We'll come back to that just in a second, because I'm gonna on the beginning of the first lap, we're on the soft tyre because we're at the start. Coming out of turn 2, look how much oversteer I get there. My goodness, I nearly completely bottled that race, nearly completely binned it firmly into the waste management facility here at Laguna Seca, becoming a large bag of rubbish at that point there. Nearly did. We nearly lose the slipstream of Pikmakosi here. But it's not to worry, we're still in the slipstream and we're still in second position. The feeling, you know that vertigo feeling, that sort of really nervy feeling in your chest that you get, I don't know, when you're up really high or something, that really nervous feeling. That is how I felt when I nearly completely spun it on the exit of turn 2. Anyway, we're still in the race, thank goodness. We'll come back to the strategy. So, tyre requirements. You have the tyre requirements consist of needing to use hard, medium, and soft racing tyre compounds. So you have to stop at least twice. We know how long that pit sequence is by now. We've seen it a couple of times in the video here. Just how long it takes between you entering the pits and your car arriving in the pit box. It's extremely long. It's probably 2-3 times as long as it is on any other circuit in the game. So the time you lose from taking those pit stops is less than the time that you lose. No, hang on. The time that you lose from taking the pit stops is more than the time you lose from just taking the 20-second penalty and running a one-stop race, each on soft tyres. So that is essentially what this race turned out to be. And I didn't know it at this point, of course. I didn't really understand it at the end of the first race. I did see the 20-second penalty and I thought, oh, that's weird. How did he do that? He must have, the rest of the pack must have completely dropped off him and just fought extremely hard, and then he was able to get a big enough gap to not have to worry about pitting a second time. Coming up the Rahal Straight, Pikmakosi makes a bit of a mistake on the exit, quite similar to the mistake the Lamborghini made in qualifying, and then he runs deep into the corkscrew. You see there, he's on that awkward angle, and I'm able to take a much faster line through that, massive downhill section. You see how close we are to him now, so it's at this point here I kind of sort of thought to start to think about, this driver might be prone to mistakes because, running wide on turn 6 is a complete unforced error, and like I've said before, when you run all four wheels on the dirt, you basically lose time for about half a lap, because I don't really get it. When you run your dirt on a tyre, run your tyres on dirt for a little bit, on any other track you might lose for a corner or two, but on this track it's just like half a lap. You will feel really sort of on top of the road, not really in tune with your car. It must be something with, I don't know, the sand like Laguna Seca in real life must be extremely thick and really adhere to those tyres more than usual, but I don't know, it seems to be carried over into the game, whatever it is. But you see that dirt on his tyres has cleared up a little bit, and he's just managed to sort of streak out that gap. And it was here I kind of thought, this guy's actually faster than me. I mean, obviously he is faster. He set qualifying time to 3/10 faster than me, so I'm gonna have to rely on him making a mistake, which I kind of had an inkling that he might have been prone to, considering the unforced error he made around here on the previous lap. So I thought, if I'm gonna overtake this guy, it's either going to be through the pits by taking an undercut, or saving a bit more fuel and sort of not remaining stationary for as long in the pits, or it's going to be from him making errors, which it's entirely valid as well. So we've spent 3 laps behind him, and we didn't really make any gains. He made that mistake and we got quite close, but you see at the end of this lap, 1.3 seconds, we were pretty much nose to tail at one point, and he's just streaked out that gap. So we're going to flash ahead to the end of 7, a much similar story. The gap stretched to about 2 seconds, and it remained fairly stable there. But we both come into the pits, and you see fuel 34 versus 35%. So we're actually on fairly similar levels. We're both in the Mustang as well. So the effect of saving extra fuel is not as pronounced if you're in the same car, because you save fuel at relatively similar rates. And that's especially important because the Ford is one thirsty boy, really likes a drink or two. So a drink or 100 litres worth. So when you're up against another Ford, your fuel is fairly similar. If you're against something like, I don't know, the Audi TT is pretty good on fuel. So if you're racing an Audi TT, the Audi is going to have a fuel advantage because the Ford is one of the worst cars for fuel in the game. So, or in the class rather. So here I've gone for my medium tyre, which is when you're at the front you want to go from softest to hardest compound. You want to stretch out that gap from the rest of the pack, and then have your hard tyre on at the very end when you've got that large gap between any sort of lesser positions down the back. But it's at this point here we're going to keep an eye on Pick McCosey here. He's 2 seconds ahead, which is about the same as we went into the pits, and we're going to keep an eye on the gap. So there is traffic ahead of him, so he's probably not going to make the gains that we expect, or make any gain at all, because he's got traffic in front of him. So we're going to have to monitor when the traffic ahead goes into the pit lane, and then we can unleash, or Pick can unleash really, and sort of show us his pace there. But throughout the course of this lap, 2.5 seconds ahead of me already, and we were 2 seconds at the end of the pit stop. There's a couple of people coming into the pits now, so I assume the guy in third, which he's caught up to quite quickly, is he going to pull into the pits? He does. So once again, Pick and I are effective first and second, which is reflected just now, and we're just going to keep tabs on the gap for the next few laps. So we're right on board for the next few laps, and keep keeping on that gap. But 3.2 seconds ahead, he's absolutely flying, considering that 1 lap ago he was 2 seconds ahead. He's now caught out. He's gained over a second, nearly a second and a half coming through turn 2. That gap was 3.4 momentarily. On the exit of 2, it's 3.5. He's gaining so quickly. And of course the strategy, I didn't know it when I was doing the race, because I thought the previous race I did with the leader having a 20-second penalty was kind of a one-off. He got lucky and was able to avoid that second pit stop because the guys behind fought so much he could afford to take the 20-second penalty. But it was when I did this race, fighting up the front, things like that matter really, because actually I nearly perform a repeat qualifying move from the start of the video. But here, the gap, 4.5 seconds, it was actually right about this portion of the race I thought, he's definitely not on the medium tyre here, because I'm on the medium. They're as fresh as they're ever going to be. It's the grippiest the medium tyre's ever going to be, and the leader is catching out so much time. He's got to be on the soft tyre again. And then it was there where it clicked. The strategy here at Laguna Seca, because the pit lane is so long, that doing a one stop with 2 stints of soft tyres is quicker than following the tyre requirements using all 3 compounds and not getting that 20-second penalty. So end of lap 10, you see how quickly we caught up. This is the end of lap 14. So I thought now at this point, maybe I could try and contend for the victory still, because he's obviously going for that penalty strategy. So what I need is less than a 20-second gap. I'm going into the pits with a 9-second gap, so it's not looking good because we know how long this pit lane is. I'm going to put on those hard tyres, come out of the pits. As we exit the pits, I looked at the gap, 27 seconds between myself and Pick McCosey. And that pretty much seals the race, because he's on soft tyres, I'm now on hard, there's no way we're going to gain. And that is how that race ended, 29 seconds behind, soon to be 9.1, because he took that 20-second penalty. And look, I'm going to say I'm happy with that result. He was faster than me, so even if he did the proper strategy, he probably would have beat me anyway. But out of the people that did the correct strategy, I was the fastest car to complete it. And, that was just from, racing cleanly, not trying to make mistakes. Well, I guess you never try to make mistakes. Avoiding mistakes at all costs. I was able to do it the quickest. Now, look, my opinion on that, it's not the driver's fault, really. I don't really blame the driver for, you know, taking that 20-second penalty. It's the game's fault for only having that penalty as low as 20 seconds, especially at a track such as Laguna Seca where the pit lane is so long. So, in my opinion, I really, you know, the driver, look, maybe you shouldn't do it. I could have done it if I had understood the strategy more, but, you know, I'm glad I didn't. I did the race as intended, but I guess if there's something in the game, if there's an inherent issue with the game, and you're able to exploit it in order to win, I mean, you know, is it cheating? It's not really, you know, you're playing the game as it is. So, I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one, but I just thought, actually I will kind of address, this is a long video, and I will admit the racing wasn't particularly exciting, but, you know, I thought it was interesting enough to have a video. But look, that's that. I had a good time. I felt quite in control of my car, and it was the first time I'd actually raced on Laguna Seca since it was introduced in the game before Christmas, so quite a while ago. But this video is going to end up being 40 minutes long if I keep talking, so I'm going to wrap it up here. So I do thank you for making it to the end, and do hit the like button if you enjoyed. Also subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. So that's going to be the end of the video today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.